It started at the Musical Fund Hall in Philadelphia, June of 1856, where two ballots were taken, and California's John Fremont was named the Republican presidential nominee with New Jersey's William Dayton his vice president. 40 conventions later, weaving its way from places such as the Wigwam in Chicago, the Cow Palace in San Francisco, to Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio, the GOP will gather next week and anoint Donald Trump as the individual they believe can win back the White House. And they will do it under a security blanket that likely will make Cleveland the safest city in America, possibly the world, for a few days. But will even a safe convention on the exterior be able to hide the jockeying and discourse that is at this moment marking the Republicans as a party some believe that is seemingly not in control of their own destiny? History lessons on this and more, plus your phone calls as well. Join us, please, at 1-877-Newsmax. Welcome back the presidential historian and New York Times bestselling author of several books on Ronald Reagan, including the 1976 and 1980 presidential campaigns. And he's just finished his latest, Citizen Newt, the making of a Reagan conservative. Craig Shirley joins us. All right, Craig, we'll get to, by the way, congratulations on the book. I'm sure we'll be talking about it here. How do you feel about perhaps having done a book about the potential vice president?
Well, I guess it's kind of fortuitous because actually I started this 4 years ago when just before Newt was running for president, and I thought it was going to turn around quickly. But as I got into the subject matter, it became so involved and so interesting that I just simply couldn't finish it. So I guess fate and fortune may be smiling on me, though, if he is on the ticket with Donald Trump.
What is it about Newt Gingrich, seeing as we're here and we're talking about this in the book, but what is it about him that makes him so unique? I mean, he has a bit of a checkered past in many ways, like so many politicians do. Yet when you come up to this election and the possibility of becoming vice president, though Donald Trump doesn't seem to be leaning his way, there are people, insiders, who say that he'd still be the best choice because nobody could carry the water better than he could inside the Beltway.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. You know, this is still in many ways Ronald Reagan's party. And Newt is the most legitimate heir to the Reagan legacy. He was there in the 70s. He was there in the 80s. He and Jack Kemp were dismissed by Tip O'Neill as Reagan's robots. I think he understands American conservatism as well, if not better, than any national politician on the scene today. Also, he's been a part of the national debate for 4 decades without ever being president of the United States, and that in itself is unique. You'd have to be hard-pressed to go back through the 200-plus year history of the American Republic and find an individual who's had such an impact for so long. He's also a unifying force. He's kind of Squanto to both sides. He talks the language of both, the Trump people and the Reaganites who appear to be somewhat leaking out of the convention. But he also talks to the establishment. So I think that Trump would send a signal that he's serious about the election by choosing somebody like Newt Gingrich, who brings so much to the table.
How concerning, though, would it be if indeed this is the ticket, that Newt Gingrich at 73 would be the oldest newly inaugurated vice president in history, and the president, Donald Trump, at 70, would be the oldest newly elected president in history? Both are septuagenarians at this point. Is that a concern?
It's since Truman in 1948. But, age has changed so much. This was a big issue just 30-some-odd years ago when Reagan was nominated in 1980, and he was 69 years old, and age was a big issue then. It really isn't now. Our views on age have changed dramatically in the last generation. Obviously, gerontology, health, medicine, lifespan have changed considerably. So I really haven't seen that come up as an issue so much with either Gingrich or Trump, for that matter.
I talked a little bit in the lead-in here about what's going to happen in Cleveland.
69 years old.
Okay, go ahead. Say again.
No, Hillary is also 69 years old.
Good point. Good point. Hasn't picked that vice presidential candidate yet, but who knows? Well, but the big question there is, could you be able to trust the vice president over there more than you could trust the presidential candidate? That's another story. I mentioned security coming in here. Here's Lois from Gary, Texas. Now, Lois, you're worried about the violence at the convention next week. So give me 30 seconds here. What do you think should be done to make sure that everybody's protected?
Well, I don't know what can be done. Sounds like they're doing about all they can do. But
well, why are you worried then, Lois? Why are you worried then? Because the police are there, the FBI is there, the Secret Service is there. They've been locking down Cleveland now for weeks here. Shouldn't that be the most safe city in America?
No. Not with who I heard was going to show up.
Who's that?
The Black Panthers, and I don't know.
Okay, we appreciate that because I'll tell you what goes on here, and this is something interesting to talk about here, Craig, because in all those conventions that I talked about, going back to the 1800s, I don't know, has there ever been any history about a convention that was so concerned about security ever before?
Well, some of them should have been more concerned, like Chicago in 1968, where there were riots in the streets. There were protests against Richard Nixon in '68 and in '72, but they were more muted. Obviously, if you go back in history, back to the nomination of Lincoln and others, is that there's always been some degree of violence. I would be a little bit worried about Cleveland too. Yes, I think you're right. I think that security will be at a maximum, but also because of the presence of the media, they will ensure maximum attention on any discord outside the convention hall and inside the convention halls as examples.
All right, let's get back to Vice President here quickly. 1-877 Newsmax. Tom is in Phoenix, Arizona. Tom, you like Newt Gingrich for Vice President. Tell us specifically why. Give us something that's not a cliche here, Tom. Tell us why.
What is Gingrich? This guy's writing a book about Gingrich and everything. What is his IQ? Because the Gingrich seems awfully smart.
Okay, I think we're going to in Rocky Mount, Virginia. Mike, you like Newt Gingrich for Vice President. Tell us why.
Well, number one, they obviously didn't like him in D.C. He is somewhat of a political outsider. But the main thing is like he also knows the ins and outs of D.C. So I think he'd be a really good vice presidential pick.
Why do you think, Craig, and we appreciate the call very much, Mike, why do you think Donald Trump might go for a Pence or somebody? It seems like Pence right now, Mike Pence, is going to wind up to be the vice president. That's the inside kick. Why do you think he'd go for him and not go for a guy like Gingrich who knows where all the bodies are buried?
Well, he may be thinking that because he's going to take the fight, he needs somewhat of a more calming establishment, vice president running mate. I think, quite frankly, that cross-pressures the message. I think that Trump, if he's going to be aggressive and be on permanent offense, he wants somebody at his side who understands permanent offense. The thing about Gingrich is that he has always been a revolutionary. He's always been anti-establishment, going back to his days in the House, taking on George H.W. Bush over the tax increases. Of course, the '94 contract with America, which was the first time in history an off-year election was nationalized, and done so quite successfully because the Republicans took control of Congress for the first time in 50 years. Taking on Bill Clinton, forcing Bill Clinton to sign so many things that he didn't want to sign, like welfare reform, freedom to farm, and other legislation. So Gingrich understands that the establishment and concentrations of power are always a threat to individual rights and privacy and dignity, and so I think that he would complement Donald Trump by taking it to the Clintons while also making the positive argument about American conservatism.
Got about 90 seconds left here. Is one of the concerns here about the convention, you see a lot of the people that are set up for speakers, and we see a lot of familiar names. But as I mentioned earlier in the show to another guest, the convention is always the time where you want to get that young vote out there, that new face out there, that person who's pushing for 2020 perhaps. We don't see that right now at this convention because a lot of those people are running scared away from Donald Trump. How concerned should the Republican Party be that they don't have a showcase here for their future talent?
Well, I think that's probably a concern. In the past, whether it was Richard Nixon or Ronald Reagan, in their acceptance speeches, they made open appeals to young voters. Richard Nixon said, in '68, he knows their first vote and he wanted to be their best vote. Reagan made open appeals to the young to join his campaign because he was painting a brighter future for America than was Jimmy Carter. The young connection to the world and to the American people, and that's really the one time when the candidate has the undivided attention of the American people is at a national convention. So, hence, divided conventions tend to go on. United conventions tend to go on around the fall.
It is going to be an interesting convention no matter what, because now we're talking platforms, finally getting down to the meat of it. And here we come, starting out on Monday. Reminder once again, the upcoming book is going to be called Citizen Newt. Matter of fact, there's the book cover right there. Citizen Newt, the making of a Reagan conservative. And it might be just in time to talk about the next vice president of the United States. Craig, Shirley, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you next week. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of new history set next week in the 4 days that they will spend in Cleveland, Ohio. Which, by the way, I've got some friends who live in Cleveland. They're leaving town for a couple of days. We're leaving right now. Rock on, true believers. Thanks for joining us. Good night and good luck.